From a secret Native American metropolis to the forgotten mythical capital of the Mongol Empire, these are 11 of the most mysterious and legendary lost cities. Great Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe, as you have probably guessed, was an ancient city in what we now know as Zimbabwe. It was built by the indigenous Bantu people somewhere in the beginning of the 11th century. Construction on the city continued for another 300 years, and at its peak, this city was estimated to have had about 18,000 occupants. It was a thriving trading empire all the way until the 15th century. However, because of a decline in trade, a rise in political instability, and the brutal reality of famine and water shortages, Great Zimbabwe was eventually abandoned. Today, visitors can see the stone ruins of this once prosperous city. Interestingly enough, the city actually lasted untouched for quite some time. It was not until the 19th century that European explorers visited the site, first believing it was the legendary city of Ophir, the place of King Solomon's famous mines. Because of its advanced stonework, the Europeans believed that whatever civilization had lived in Zimbabwe would have been equal to that of Phoenicians, Egyptians, or Greeks. Have you ever found some buried artifact from decades or even centuries ago? Perhaps a piece of a car from the 1950s sitting in an abandoned shed? An old Coke can sitting in a dry riverbed on a hike, maybe? Let me know what you've discovered in the comments below, and while you're there, remember to subscribe if you haven't already. You're going to love all the awesome and informative videos here. Xanadu China. Xanadu is a truly lost city. It's located north of the Great Wall of China in what was once the Mongol Empire's domain. The city was founded by Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan, and soon became the legendary capital city of his empire. This was way back in the year 1256. The city was built as an attempt to assimilate the Han Chinese and the nomadic Mongolians, two very different cultures of people. It was from this ancient city that Kublai Khan established the Yuan dynasty, which ended up ruling over China for a century. The city quickly became a favorite summer retreat for many prominent members of both societies. This ancient city is also where a serious religious debate between Taoism and Buddhism launched the dissemination of Tibetan Buddhism over a majority of Northeast Asia, a practice which is still practiced today. As with most ancient cities, Xanadu was eventually abandoned in 1430 because it was built on a grassy steep. It's now basically covered by grassy fields and almost invisible. The walls of the palace city, the imperial city, and the outer city can all be found at the site, but it's little more than crumbled stone. What a tragic end to an incredible and historic place. Tikal Guatemala. Tikal in modern-day Guatemala was the biggest city of the ancient Mayans, with an outstanding population of between 100,000 and 200,000. This was quite some time ago, back between 200 and 900 AD. Tikal was such a massive city for its time that the area around the city actually suffered from major deforestation and catastrophic erosion, which was followed by a drastic decline in population levels. Between the years 830 and 950, almost all the population left the city due to political collapse. And finally, after the year 950, Tikal was basically deserted. A small population continued to survive in the ruins, but the thousands and thousands of other people were gone. And even by the 10th century, the squatters living in the ruins had also abandoned the city. What happened to cause this political upheaval? Researchers are not 100% sure, but like with many dynasties, weak leaders and mismanagement combined with strong enemies probably had something to do with it. For the next 1,000 years, nobody lived in Tikal. The Guatemalan rainforest reclaimed the ruins, and it remained swallowed by the forest until the modern age. Now, Tikal is one of the most visited tourist sites in Guatemala. Dwarka, India. The ancient city of Dwarka is a city of legends. This legend states that Krishna, the absolute most powerful personality in the Mahabharata, founded the city. The legends also state that Dwarka had thousands of royal palaces, each one constructed of crystal and silver and decorated with shining emeralds. What makes this city so amazing is that the underwater archaeological finds actually confirm much of the earliest details of the shape of the city, though not the thousands of palaces. Supposedly, marine scientists have claimed the underwater ruins could be over 9,000 years old, which makes no sense considering the oldest known remains in India are only about 5,000 years old. Carbon dating of some debris from the site dates it even older than the oldest Egyptian and Chinese civilizations. It's said the city was submerged after a massive flood 9,000 years ago. Do you believe that this is legitimate? The whole story of a flooded city sounds almost too crazy to believe. Babylon, Iraq. Babylon is one of the most ancient cities in the world, credited as being the very center of early civilization. Babylon was the capital of the ancient empire of Mesopotamia, one of the world's very first mega-civilizations. It has one of the longest histories of any city in the world. The city is so old that it dates back to around 2300 BC. Babylon has a long history of flourishing and fading, first under the Mesopotamian Empire, then as a subsidiary of the ancient Assyrians. The city was famed for being rich, colorful, and the center of culture and wealth in the earliest human civilizations. After the fall of the Assyrian Empire, the Neo-Babylonian Empire was formed. This was a period of cultural renaissance, and the time the famous Hanging Gardens of Babylon would have been created, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, along with the pyramids of Giza. However, the fall of Babylon came around in 539 BC when the Persian king Cyrus conquered Babylon. The true history of Babylon is so incredibly complex that it would take an entire video to go through it all in detail. The most important things to know about it are the following. It's a key city in Jewish history, and the city of Babylon also appears in Christian scriptures and Hebrew scripts. Today, there is not much left of Babylon except some broken brick and tile, having been basically destroyed and plowed over by invading US forces and Saddam Hussein himself during the United States war with Iraq. What little is left of the magnificent city is currently located south of Baghdad, but it's not a place I would recommend visiting. After all, it's still basically a war zone in parts of Iraq. Be careful if you do visit there. Ciudad Perdida, Colombia. One of the most remote lost cities in the world is actually located in modern-day Colombia. Known as Ciudad Perdida, which literally translates in Spanish to Lost City, the ruins of this place can be found in Sierra Nevada, high up in the jungle mountains, and is believed to have been founded at around 800 AD. So yeah, it's a pretty old city, though there is absolutely nothing left of it anymore. After hiking for several grueling hours through the sweltering trees, you will reach the spot where the city once prospered at the top of a sort of plateau in the middle of the jungle. All that remains of this once great city is a small route of tiled roads, some circular plazas, and a series of terraces carved neatly into the side of the mountain. What's interesting about Colombia's lost city is that, according to CNN, almost nobody visits. The city is older, more remote, and arguably more of an explorer's fantasy than Machu Picchu in Peru, yet nobody ever visits Ciudad Perdida. Although this could be due to the fact that there are no trains or buses going to this ancient lost city in the jungle. You literally have to walk through a jungle for many hours to reach the city, which local tribes believe had once been the heart of a vast network of villages in the area. Sadly, many of these cities, including Ciudad Perdida, were abandoned during the conquest of South America by the Spanish Empire in the 16th and 17th centuries. Port Royal, Jamaica. It is said that the city of Port Royal in Jamaica was the most wicked and sinful city in the entire world at the time of its drowning. The city was famous all over the world for its lustful, greedy, and alcoholic ways. The city was destroyed in 1692 after a devastating earthquake hit the island and the city basically flooded. The city had been built entirely on sand, and the huge earthquake sent it directly into the ocean. It's said that geysers erupted from the earth, all the buildings collapsed, and tsunami waves dragged everything into the ocean. At the end of the day, about 33 acres of the entire city had been swallowed by the sea, 2,000 people were killed, and even Captain Morgan's cemetery was eaten by the waves. During this time, the island of Jamaica was under English rule. The English had invaded and captured Jamaica after failing to capture Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and so the harbor at Port Royal became the center of English society in Jamaica. By the late 1600s, it was one of the biggest European cities in the New World, second only to the city of Boston. However, it was notorious for pirates, gambling, fighting, drunkenness, and general sin. The slave trade boomed here, plantations were grown, and pirates made lots of money from looting the Spanish. So when Port Royal was swept into the ocean in 1692, many people thought of it as an act of God, washing the agents of Satan into the ocean. Many people saw the destruction of Port Royal as divine retribution for the disgusting behavior of the pirates and their collaborators. Its remains can still be found at the bottom of the sea. Now, this is one sunken city that is definitely worth visiting if you can go scuba diving down there. It sounds like the party might still be going on, just under the sea. Sukhothai Thailand. One of the most important historical sites in Thailand is the ancient city of Sukhothai. It began life as a town inside the Khmer Empire, which was a famous and powerful kingdom centered in Southeast Asia from between the years 800 and 1400. As the empire declined, this magnificent city then gained its independence in the 13th century. This was the very first capital of the independent Thai state and the beginning of the nation we now know as Thailand. The town most likely had about 80,000 inhabitants at the time. But shortly after its creation, the ancient town of Ayutthaya was founded in 1351 by a rival Thai dynasty and caused Sukhothai to lose its influence. In 1438, Sukhothai was conquered by the Ayutthaya and incorporated into the larger kingdom, and then was eventually abandoned between the 15th and 16th century. Today, visitors can visit a handful of ruins on the original site of this now lost city. Lion City, China. Nicknamed China's Atlantis, Lion City, also known as Xichang, is arguably the most stunning underwater city. Built during the Han Dynasty and located at the bottom of a lake in the eastern Chinese province of Zhejiang, it was once a thriving metropolis. In 1959, the Chinese government decided to build a man-made lake as part of their plans for a new hydroelectric power station. A dam was erected, and the historic economic and political center was slowly submerged. The newly constructed body of water was named Qiandao Lake and covers the huge 62 football field-sized ancient city in anywhere between 85 and 130 feet of water. For 53 years, Xichang was forgotten about. Recently, it was discovered that nearly every structure in the city remains intact, including wooden beams and stairs, earning it the label of a time capsule. The rediscovered city attracted the interest of archaeologists and a film crew, and has since become a tourist attraction. Who wants to go diving there? Mesa Verde, United States of America. Mesa Verde is one of the most impressive ruins that can be seen in the United States of America. The ancient city is located in southwestern Colorado and was once home to the ancient Anasazi people. Back in the 12th century, the Anasazi built a massive city inside shallow caves and underneath rock hangings of the Colorado Canyon walls. They were a complex people who achieved great things, if only for a short period of time. Though they never developed a writing system, they did manage to build some pretty impressive cities. The Anasazi built enormous homes underneath the stone, some of them holding as many as 150 rooms. However, right around the year 1300, the city became deserted. They then left the area of Mesa Verde, which translates from Spanish as green table, but nobody knows why the ancient people left. Some experts theorize it could be crop failures, drought, or even an intrusion of foreign tribes from the north who scared them off. Nonetheless, you can still see this lost city underneath a stone overhang on your next visit to Colorado. I highly recommend it. Have you ever visited this or any other historic site of ancient ruins? What did you think? Let me know how it went in a comment below. Pyramid of Yanagijima, Japan. The Pyramid of Yanagijima, off the coast of Japan, is one of the most impressive and uncertain mysteries of our time. It was discovered by a local scuba diving instructor back in 1987, and since then, the pyramid has been boggling scientists all over the world. Nobody knows exactly what it is, and some scientists can't even agree on whether it is man-made or if it's simply a rock formation, but there's no denying this giant monument is definitely a pyramid. It's composed mostly of sandstone and mudstone, with various structures connecting to the rock beneath the pyramid, and possible traces of roads and pillars. The largest part is a giant slab of rock, about 500 feet, 160 meters in length. From the top of the rock to the surface of the water is about 16 feet, 5 meters. Is this proof of an ancient civilization? Is it the Japanese Atlantis? Nobody really knows. While the structure itself is undoubtedly man-made, the mudstone that the monument's actually carved from is believed to be roughly 20 million years old. However, the construction on the pyramid itself is likely closer to about 2,000 years old. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go, and see you next time.